Hello everyone and welcome to this update video for Dialog and Quest Master. Today I'll walk you through the latest features added in the recent updates. I'm currently inside the Dialog and Quest Master demo project, and I slightly modified this dialog to add a new option that allows the player to return the sword to the NPC. On this dialog node, I added a condition so the option can only be selected if the player owns the epic sword. If we test it right now, you'll notice that the option doesn't appear at all, because the condition isn't met.
Fine, thank you.
Doing well.
And that's where the first new feature comes in. In the latest version, a new field called Visibility Mode has been added. This allows you to control whether a dialog branch should be visible independently of whether it is available. For example, I can set the visibility mode to always visible. Now when we test again, the option appears.
Hey Master D, how are you?
Fine, thank you. And you?
Doing well.
But it's locked, with a padlock icon indicating that it's currently unavailable. This is extremely useful from a game design perspective. Instead of hiding content completely, you can show players that alternative paths exist. It communicates that the narrative has depth, that progression matters, and that different builds or decisions can unlock different outcomes. In this case, the condition checks for an inventory item. But you could just as easily tie dialogue branches to character stats like persuasion, charisma, strength, reputation systems, faction alignment, or quest states. By exposing locked branches visually, you encourage replayability and make progression systems feel meaningful, without revealing spoilers. Now, if we go back and pick up the epic sword, you'll see that the option becomes available. At this point, however, we may want to hide the other two choices, accept and decline, once the sword is already in the player's inventory. To do that, we simply add a condition to those branches. And this leads us to the next improvement in this update. In this demo project, I already had a condition implemented to check if the player owns an item, but I didn't have a built-in way to check the inverse case. So in this version, a very simple but powerful addition was made. A not boolean directly on conditions. By checking this option, you invert the evaluation result. Here, I'm testing whether the player does not have the epic sword in the inventory. I add the same condition on the decline branch. Now let's test the full flow. The first time we interact with the NPC, we see the locked sword return option, while accept and decline are available.
Thank you very much.
But once we return with the epic sword, those two branches disappear because their conditions are no longer valid. And since only one option remains, by default, the dialog choice widget is not displayed. However, sometimes you may want to force the player to explicitly confirm that choice, even if there is only one possible branch. For that, another recent addition was introduced, Force Dialog Choice. When this boolean is enabled, the choice widget will always appear, even if only a single option is available.
Hey Master D, fine, doing well. I'll take it, period. Hey Master D.
And as you can see when testing again, the dialog choice is now explicitly presented to the player, even though there's only one possible path.
Oh, okay, that's a shame.
Another major addition in this update is the introduction of an Environmental Subtitles widget. By default, the widget included with Dialog and Quest Master is inspired by Final Fantasy VII Remake, positioned on the left side of the screen, with subtitles stacking dynamically as conversations unfold in the environment. Of course, this widget is fully customizable. You can reposition it, modify its layout, restyle it, or build your own version based on the provided example. Now let's look at how it behaves in-game.
The one that supposedly makes anyone who wears it invincible?
Exactly.
As you can see, when the player moves away from the conversation area, the subtitles automatically stop displaying.
A chest, you say?
When we move back within range, they appear again.
Because that same hunter saw the Baron's blacksmith working on golden pieces. Far too fine for any.
And if we trigger a cinematic dialogue, the Environmental Subtitles widget is automatically hidden, ensuring there's no visual conflict with your main dialogue UI. Everything is handled cleanly and automatically.
The word's already spreading in the taverns.
All of this is fully configurable from the Dialog and Quest Master UI configuration data asset. Environmental Subtitles use the exact same font configuration as your standard dialogue subtitles. This means you don't need to set up separate typography rules. Everything stays visually consistent across your entire UI by default. From there, you can also enable or disable the Environmental Subtitles widget, Define whether it should use a maximum display distance, set that distance precisely, and of course customize the fonts directly from the same configuration asset. Everything is centralized in one place, making the system clean, scalable, and production-ready. Finally, this update also includes several refinements and bug fixes related to level sequence integration inside dialogues. To demonstrate this, I'll use the intro sequence, which I recently rebuilt using the new subtitle system directly integrated into a level sequence. In some projects, you may require specific level sequence playback settings. For example, whether the sequence should pause at the end, loop, or follow custom playback rules. Previously, if the default configuration didn't match your needs, you had to manually adjust each dialogue node individually. To streamline this, you can now configure the default level sequence settings directly from the project settings. Under Dialog Master Dialog Editor, you'll find a section called Default Level Sequence Settings. For example, if I disable pause at end here and create a new dialog node in the graph, you'll see that the new node automatically inherits that configuration. If I re-enable pause at end and create another new node, the option is active again. Important clarification. These defaults only apply to newly created nodes. Existing dialog nodes are not modified retroactively. This makes the system production safe while still giving you centralized control. Now let's look at another useful addition, especially if you plan to localize your game into languages that use non-Latin characters, such as Mandarin, Japanese, or Arabic. By default, the editor font does not support all character sets. To solve this, you can now override the fonts used by the dialog editor directly from the project settings. You'll find two dedicated fields: Dialog Editor Regular Font, Dialog Editor Bold Font. Let me quickly demonstrate. If I change the fonts here, go back to the editor, and make any modification, you'll see the editor now uses the newly selected fonts. The ones I have available here aren't particularly readable, so I'll revert to the default, but in a real localization pipeline, this allows full Unicode compatibility without engine-level modifications. Now let's look at one final feature. It was actually added some time ago, but I haven't properly showcased it yet. As you can see in the intro dialog, the structure has changed. In red, you see the old workflow, where dialog lines were manually synchronized with the level sequence, often through trial and error. In green, you see the new workflow, where we simply trigger the level sequence directly. And yet, subtitles still appear perfectly synchronized on screen. So how does this work? Let's open the level sequence. Here you can see the camera tracks and shot sections. Below them you'll find a subtitle track. This is the key improvement. With the subtitle track, you can visually align subtitles directly with camera movement and shot timing. This gives you frame-accurate control over when subtitles appear, based on what the player actually sees. Each subtitle section allows you to define a speaker asset, required if you want to trigger facial or body animations, a character name override, for example replacing the character's name with unknown, an optional sound reference, and of course the actual subtitle text. You can create multiple subtitle tracks. However, only one subtitle is displayed on screen at a time. If tracks overlap, the most recently activated track takes priority and overrides the others. Let me demonstrate. I'll add a subtitle on another subtitle track. To do that, right-click inside the sequencer and select Dialog Master Subtitle Track. Then simply enter the text inside the section and position it exactly where you want the subtitle to appear. Now when we test the sequence, you can see the newly added subtitle displaying correctly on screen. This workflow is particularly powerful if your project makes extensive use of level sequences for cinematic storytelling. It removes guesswork, improves synchronization precision, and keeps everything centralized inside the sequencer, where it belongs. So that's it for this update of Dialog and Quest Master. The goal with these improvements is simple: give you more control, better workflow efficiency, and stronger narrative design tools directly inside Unreal Engine. And one last important thing: both Dialog and Quest Master and Interaction Master are currently 50% off, but only until March 6th. If you've been thinking about upgrading your dialogue system or adding a scalable Quest framework to your project, this is the perfect time. You'll find the links on Fab in the description below. And if you have questions or want to connect with other developers using the plugin, feel free to join the Discord community. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.